Yo, what's going on, everybody? Today, we've got a very amazing guest. I got to meet Michael Mader. He was the founder of Hippy Feet during the grand opening of Label King here in Utah. And he and his team absolutely crushed it with some custom Label King socks. And it wasn't just like, we transacted it, but we're going to talk about why they exist, all the good that they're doing. Michael jumped right in with both feet fully socked and took care of us, even though we were just this random label printing company in Utah. And so I thought, man, I want to give back, and I want everybody to know about this amazing company, Hippy Feet, and what they're doing, and why, if you don't listen to anything else, you should absolutely use them for any sort of corporate event, sports teams, you name it. They got you covered. Really, really cool stuff. You're going to be stoked to hear from Michael here right after this intro.
Thanks for having us, Adam. And one more thing that I'll leave you with here. If anybody listening to this podcast today is so excited about getting their own branded socks, if you go to our website, hippyfeet.com, custom socks and knitwear page, you fill out that form. If you mention the Label King is how you heard of us, we will give you a 15% discount off your first purchase of custom socks.
What is going on, Michael Mader? How are you today, sir?
Hey, Adam, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on today.
Of course. And you are coming to us live and direct from the state with all of the water, right?
All the lakes, yes. The land of 10,000 lakes, but we actually have 15,000 lakes. And if you ask anybody from Wisconsin, they're going to say that they have more lakes than we do, but that's because they classify a pond as a lake. We have better standards about what we define lakes as here in Minnesota.
You know, it's funny. I was going to ask you about that because I drove once with my family. We took this epic road trip, me and my 5 kids and my 1 wife, and we drove from Salt Lake City. We went over to Colorado. We went up to Iowa. We drove to through Wisconsin, Traverse City, back through the UP, across Wisconsin, over to the Twin Cities. It was crazy.
It's a great road
And I
trip.
remember somebody telling me, it was amazing. And I remember somebody telling me, that it was either Wisconsin or Michigan had more lakes than Minnesota. They just didn't do a very good job marketing it. And then the folks in Minnesota were like, well, that's because it's like this whole battle. Either way, I think all the states are pretty beautiful, to be totally candid. It was at least all those states we drove through. I don't know that all of the states are beautiful, but there are beautiful things in each of the states. Yeah, so you and I got to meet through an internet inquiry, and I think what was really cool is I reached out and I was like, hey, I just need a couple hundred pairs of socks for this event. I don't really know. You know, I'm asking all the wrong signals. What are your MOQs? All this kind of stuff. And you were like, let's jump on a call. And I'm like, Googling, I'm like, you're the founder of the company? It was awesome, honestly. Just that personal touch. Your team was incredible. The socks came out amazing. They were the hit. Like, I don't have any more left. That was what everybody wanted, was some custom socks. So it was a great experience. But Michael, before that, like, how did you arrive at a point where you're like, I need to start Hippy Feet? Like, what on earth was that going through your mind before you started this company?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you like your socks, Adam. They definitely are an excellent promo product. I always like to tell folks, if you go into a trade show and you're wondering what not to give, always check the trash on your way out of the show, and that'll tell you exactly what you should not be giving away. It's the lanyards, the mouse pads, the stuff that is cheap and accessible, but is oftentimes considered as junk and not actually treasured or valued or worn like a pair of socks often is. So socks are definitely an excellent product to put your logo on. But how I got started with Hippy Feet, the kind of inspiration for this business came to me when I was a senior in college. I like to consider myself a traditional college student in the sense that I was there for the social elements and less so for the actual education that we were paying for. So I had my share of fun. And it wasn't until my senior year that I actually started to take the education portion of school seriously. I unfortunately suffered a traumatic brain injury during my senior year of college in the fall, October of 2020. What year was that? 2015. So we are approaching my 10-year anniversary of this TBI. I used to be a skateboarder. I obviously do not skate anymore for obvious reasons. I uh, cannot afford another blow to the head, unfortunately. But I fell off my board one day and I went face first into a curb and fractured my orbital bone in several places. I fractured
Gosh.
the inside of my skull, like the actual impact of hitting the curb was so significant that it rattled my skull and caused a fracture on the inside of it, like closest in contact with my brain. Um, all things considered, I'm super lucky. I was able to recover from that injury, and without too many lingering side effects. I still get headaches from time to time. You still deal with brain fog like most people deal with. So not out of the woods entirely, but in retrospect, very lucky to be able to be a functioning human being following that injury. But the real inspiration that I drew from that experience was I recognized how important it was to have a support system. I relied on my family and friends during my 3 months of recovery. The first month of which I was entirely bedridden. I was totally dependent on my support system. Family and friends stepped up. They paid for my groceries. My family paid for my rent. My friends would take turns picking my groceries up from the grocery store. This is pre Uber Eats days. After about a month or month and a half of recovery, I was able to move about and walk again and start being a little bit more active. And I had friends that would pick me up and take me on a walk through the local state parks, once a week, just so that I could get some fresh air and feel like I had a sense of a social life. And this experience, caused me to realize that without my support system, homelessness would have been my most likely outcome. And I felt really damn lucky to have people that were willing to give their time and resources just to help keep me out of the weeds. And I realized that there are a lot of people experiencing homelessness that are in that situation just as a result of not having that support system. If they made a mistake, had an accident, something that happened in their lives that was out of their control, and it thrust them into this, horrible financial situation where they were facing homelessness. If they didn't have somebody to lean on, that's likely the path that they fell down. And to me, that felt really unfair. And so I wanted to build a business that could act like that support system for those that were not as fortunate as I was when I was facing my greatest moment of adversity. So that was where the kind of ethos and the idea for Hippy Feet was born. I was lucky enough to get connected with some excellent advisors at my school when I was finishing up that senior year in the spring. They allowed me to take all of the classes I missed in the fall online and all the classes that spring in person. I took 30 credits that year. I approached some of my advisors and said, all right, I want to start a business and graduate on time. How can I make this possible? They connected me with a couple of on campus and external business model competitions. The first on campus competition, I placed second, but thankfully, only two teams participated, and the top two teams got a bid to go to the state level competition. So I took the time to really kind of hone in my pitch, and I was able to win that state level competition, which awarded me with $22,000 of seed funding. Looking back, I thought that was a lot of money at the time, and was very gung ho about using that as capital to start this business. Thankfully, it was enough to get us off the ground, and we've been able to bootstrap it ever since. But we launched the company in 2016, so the fall after I graduated, and we launched it on a buy one give one sock donation model. So our intention was to always help people experiencing homelessness, and our first go of that effort was to donate a pair of socks for every pair that we sold, very similar to Tom's shoes or Bombas socks, which most people will be aware of. The buy one give one model though fell short in my opinion, and what I mean by that is we had given 20 to 30,000 pairs of socks away in our first 2 years of being in business, and I myself was the person that would distribute those socks. So I did street outreach with local nonprofits where we were handing out socks to people in the streets. I also did like some bulk donations to homeless shelters in the Twin Cities area here in Minnesota. And in doing that, I started to recognize some of the people that we were giving socks to. You'd show up at a homeless shelter on a Thursday, you'd give socks to Jim, and you'd say, Jim, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and I'll have another pair of socks ready for you. And that experience kind of caused us to realize that Jim and other folks experiencing homelessness are always going to need socks. And it's a good thing to provide, but what you're doing in that effort is you're treating a symptom of homelessness and you are not addressing the underlying causes. You could give anybody experiencing homelessness millions of pairs of socks, And unfortunately, they're not going to be able to use that as a tool to get out of homelessness. And so for us, we wanted to play a role in helping people transition out of homelessness. And unfortunately, the buy one, give one donation model wasn't giving that. In 2018, we decided to abandon that one for one model and instead transitioned to an employment program. We actually hired homeless youth ages 16 to 25 to come work in our warehouse. We had them do all of our order fulfillment, product assembly, packaging, screen printing, embroidery, you name it. If it happened in a warehouse, that's what we employed these folks to do. And that program was a much better way of providing a service to young folks in need because it actually addressed one of their core needs, which was income. So we were employing young folks for a 6 month period of time. We helped refer them to future job opportunities so that it was not just income in isolation, that it was actually providing them with a pathway towards future employment. And through that program, we can confidently say that there are young people that are no longer experiencing homelessness as a direct result of the income we provided them. The reason
That's
that we
amazing.
ended up moving on, thank you, it is actually my proudest accomplishment to date, being able to make that claim. But we moved on from the employment side of things back in 2022, and we did so because we had done an analysis in 2021. We wanted to learn exactly how many people had graduated from our program and found self sufficiency. We actually hired a social worker to manage that employment program for the last year of its existence because I will be the first person to admit I am not a social worker. I do not have that formal background. I was doing the best I could with the skills that I had. So we figured we wanted to grow the program up, bring in a professional to help oversee the youth and provide better curriculum, as well as to run this analysis. And what this analysis told us is less than 7% of the youth that we employed ended up finding self-sufficiency after graduating our program. And that was a little bit alarming to us. We thought the percentage of success would be a little bit higher. So we decided to dive into the reason that these folks were still struggling. And what we learned is they were coming to us for the income. They came to us for the job. And then they would have to go to another nonprofit for housing opportunities, a third nonprofit for mental health and substance abuse counseling, and other nonprofits for education opportunities. That became a job in its own right. They were bouncing around town to find their basic needs and get their core services met, and that became a challenge. And so we recognized that we weren't providing a one-stop shop where a young person could come and get all of their needs met or resources fulfilled. And frankly, as a for-profit company, we were never going to be able to achieve that. And so we decided that instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, instead of trying to provide employment in isolation, that we would be better off simply donating our resources to organizations that had the ability to provide housing, healthcare, education, and income opportunities under a single roof. And so that is how we operate today and have since 2022, which is where we donate 50% of our profits after we pay our taxes, of course, to charities that are working to end youth homelessness. If you combine our
Man,
total impact from wages paid, socks donated, and monetary donations, we've surpassed $200,000 of total impact since 2016.
that's amazing. Well, that was a lot. It's so much. There's so much, and the cool thing, and that's why I love talking with founders and owners. It's like you can't fake that sort of passion. And I've talked about the book "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek quite a bit,
Mhm.
where it's like entrepreneurship is so hard that without that like drive of something more than just money, this is my
Right.
suspicion. If you don't have a drive for something else, um, it's going to be really tough to make it. That's my personal opinion. I'm sure the people have made it. I was driven by greed. If they were in their most honest moment, they're like, I just wanted to get paid. I wanted to make a lot of money. I'm sure there's people who have made it with that, but I think that's more the exception than it is the norm. Because there's so many difficulties that go into not only starting a business, but starting a purpose first business. And similar to you, I got to go travel to Rwanda. This was a while. It's probably 2011, and I got to spend a couple of weeks in Rwanda meeting with uh, kids who had now grown up, but they were orphaned during the genocide in 1994. And I remember I had this thought because I was born legally blind, and I had contacts and that kind of support. But I remember I was sitting there and I'm like, if I were just born here in 1980 in Rwanda, and when I was 14 years old when the genocide happened, I would have had virtually zero upward mobility because I would have been not only legally blind, I probably would have become fully blind and in a, kind of a largely agrarian society that then turned militaristic during the, I would have had no use. Whereas just by sheer fact that I was in born in this place, like I'm able to do so much, and so that's always been a thing for me that's sort of been compelling, um, in as a means to give back. So I love hearing that, and that's such a big part of your story. And I love the is that landscaping going on? Sorry.
Yes, we have a. Let me tell them to stop doing the saw for a second. We have
Fine.
a kitchen remodel that is in the middle of being finished. We're like a week out. So one
Dude,
second
you're
here, I'll
totally
I'll pause. I'll pause the saw for the next 20 minutes here. Sorry about that.
okay,
Give me
it's
one
fine.
second.
We'll be right back with Michael.
Yeah,
All right, we are back with which, by the way, I don't really mind the background noise. I just know that for guests it can be a little bit like, and obviously a tile saw is going to be a bit aggressive. But when there's like kids or things like that, I'm just like, it's a podcast. We're talking. Most of us are. There's a lot of people who still work from their house. So, um,
totally.
but anyway, so Michael, I want to talk about the actual product, because let's be totally honest. However, whatever good you want to do in the world, if it through business, let's just say, if you don't have a good product to sell, it's going to drastically hinder your ability. Like, I if you had really terrible socks that you were selling and the print quality sucked, and you're like, but I'm doing all this good, I think most people would be like, that's amazing. I don't want to buy your crappy socks though. That's probably going to be because at the end of the day, that's sort of what moves commerce oftentimes. And I remember one time I was at Starbucks. This was maybe before you even started Hippy Feet. I was with my wife, and I saw that Oprah had some tea that she was with, and it had like all these good messaging and had this really really nice packaging, and the price point was really low. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I bet this tea is garbage. I bet it really sucks because you could tell they were just like throwing every marketing thing at it. The celebrity sponsor, the good the goodwill stuff, the really high end packaging, but they knew it wouldn't support the price point, so they probably didn't have really good product. And it turns out it wasn't. It didn't last very long. The sales were bad because the product wasn't good. So at the end of the day, you still have to have that product, and you do. So what was that like then to find, or to have the ability to make high quality, it says on your website, which here I'll pull up here real quickly while we're talking about the product. Um, it's American made custom socks and knitwear. And you can see if you go to their website, which is hippyfeet.com, you can see all of these brands, some pretty big ones: Pixar, Microsoft, the Minnesota Timberwolves, United Healthcare, HubSpot. What is this? Peace Coffee. How do you say this one? Tajin?
Tahine.
Tahin? I don't know.
Tahine. Oh,
Or
you've had tahine before. It is a very classic Mexican spice. You've
I'm
had it
sure
and
I have.
probably not even noticed. Oh yeah.
I'm sure I had. I bet their socks are fire. And then the Wharton School of Business. So obviously, word's getting around. You guys are doing some cool things. But what's that? What was that like to source then American-made custom socks and knitwear? It had to have been a
Yeah.
pretty crazy process.
It was a journey. It was a process for sure. But I first want to agree that product has to come first, um, especially when we are in the promo product space. Most of my business today is creating custom socks and other knitwear for organizations. And as you just listed, we've worked with some pretty big companies, and you cannot deliver a crappy product to Microsoft. That is just not how they work. And so I'm totally among the belief that regardless of mission. You could be trying to do the most humanitarian thing in the world, and if your product sucks, you're not going to achieve that goal. So we were really passionate about developing a high quality product, and anytime we bring in a new item or a new product to offer, it is gone through a very extensive quality test to make sure the materials are not only high quality materials but ethically sourced and sustainably sourced. Like we are very passionate about our products. Myself personally, I'm amongst the belief of buy once, cry once. Like I like things that last for life. I'd rather spend more on a product that is going to last an eternity versus something that's cheap and I'm going to be thrown away or replacing in a year or two. So I take that personal mentality of mine and I apply it to our own products. Where if you were going to buy an expensive pair of socks from us, or if you're going to buy an expensive sweater from us, like that sweater or that sock is going to last you a very long time. Like that is something that we are very passionate about, and I think is a core tenet of our business, and something that we are obtaining or
Can I jump in here?
attempting to achieve all the time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, because I think there's a connection to packaging here. Obviously, it's a packaging podcast, but um, you're talking about ethically sourced and long lasting. And what a lot of people don't fully realize is that both the specifically like the cotton industry, because there was a lot of pushback on like paper bags, for example, and it was like we need to have these cotton totes. Well, what happened was a lot of these cotton totes were made by the Uyghur people, and that's where a lot of the cotton was sourced from, which was, if you know, go Google it, right? Like it's a tragedy what's happened to these people in China, and a lot of the world's cotton was coming from this region, which was, I would say, on the net, it's like there's less plastic in the ocean, but have we really done good by making these really cheap cotton bags that are not
Right,
ethically sourced? I don't
right.
know. And then on top of that, you have these fast fashion where a lot of stuff is made with various plastic in clothing, and a lot of the world's microplastics and a lot of the world's ocean plastics are coming from just stuff getting thrown out and ending up in the ocean. Um, so it's cool to kind of make that connection back to packaging and sustainability, in that when we ethically source things and we make them to last long, and especially when we do giveaways at a trade show that they're going to last for a while, there is a really, really powerful sustainability story that's there as well. So I didn't want to jump in and ruin your flow, but I just thought it's really important for people to understand that these things you're talking about have long lasting impacts on the world at large.
Yeah, and I think the perfect way to summarize that is sustainability is not defined by just the processes that goes into making a product, but it's also the lifespan of that product, right? If we
Yes.
are making things with sustainable materials, but those materials do not hold up for longer than a year, and you can no longer use that product, 12 months after purchasing it, that's not a sustainable product. All that it is doing is contributing to more waste. The goal is to achieve sustainability from both a process perspective and then quality to the point in which that garment or that product is going to last an extended period of time so that it does not become waste. I think if you can obtain both longevity and sustainability from a process perspective, that is kind of the bridge that you want to draw for true quality and true sustainable purposes. Going back to our manufacturing journey and how we were able to set up manufacturing to achieve this level of quality, American manufacturing has always been a pillar of this brand and always will be. But that was a challenge, especially for socks. The East Coast in the United States, North Carolina, Alabama specifically, used to be the sock and hosiery mecca of the world up until around 1980, when things started to ship off to China and overseas, where we found lower manufacturing costs, lower labor costs, and once that globalization effort started to happen, you saw a lot of institutional hosiery mills in the East Coast close down. There are still several remaining, but those that are remaining are almost always family run organizations. They're on their second or third generation of being a family run business. And these are companies that have been able to secure really big contracts. And that was a hindrance for a new brand like myself, because the very common experience that I had, and I'll be the first to tell you that being a college student did not help me in this conversation. But I began to look for manufacturers, and I called 30 plus, all within that summer. I was graduating from college, getting ready to launch this business, and my typical conversation was, "Hey, I'm a college student. I just won $25,000 to start a sock company. I would love to partner with you and have you manufacture my products." Click, phone would be hung up immediately.
Right.
And what I realized was happening is I was talking to folks that were making socks for Walmart. They were making socks for the U.S. military. They were making socks for incredibly massive accounts where they were doing millions of units of volume per year off of a handful of accounts that they've had for decades. And so their machines were always in operation. And that's what a manufacturer wants is they've purchased a ton of expensive equipment and they want that equipment to be running 24/7, 365 with as little interruptions to it as possible because their margins are tight and the only way that they're going to make high profit is by keeping those machines on all the time. And what I was asking them to do was to take a risk on a up and coming sock brand that had no sales, that only had a handful of designs of socks that they wanted to produce, and I was asking them to interrupt their production for their massive accounts that make them all of their money to take a chance on a kid from the Midwest looking to start a sock business. And I was getting hung up on for that reason alone. They did not want to take any risks to interrupt their typical processes, to get in the way of their big accounts. And so for me, in trying to set up this manufacturing, I was getting told no all the time. I was very tired of being told no. And so on that 31st call, I called a manufacturer in North Carolina and I said, I've been hung up on every single time that I've had this conversation. I'm tired of it. I have a plane ticket in hand. I'm going to show up at your facility tomorrow morning. I'm going to bang on your goddamn door and I'm not fucking leaving until you make socks. And I flew to North Carolina. I banged on their door and I left with my first set of 6 sock designs that same very day. And I've been working with that manufacturer for going on 9 or 10 years now. So they took a risk on me, but it took the audacity of actually showing up to their facility and letting them know how serious I was, making a deposit that day to walk away with inventory. So it took a little bit of creativity to get these folks to take me seriously. But once we got one manufacturer, the kind of dominoes fell, and we've been able to set up manufacturing quite easily ever since. All of our future manufacturers came on referral, right? It was our primary manufacturer, our number one manufacturer saying, hey, this guy is reputable. He's going to give you legit business. It's worth taking the time to chat with him and making socks for him because it'll turn into a growing and blossoming relationship for you. And so we've been able to set up around 5 or 6 different sock manufacturers, a couple different sweater and knitwear manufacturers, and all these manufacturers came to us on referral. But it was very challenging to get that first one to take us seriously. But I'm glad we did it because we are, producing socks in the States. We're supporting these generationally owned family businesses and ensuring that the quality that we have is the highest. I've been to the facilities. I've seen how the socks are made. I know the people who are making them. I have phone calls with them daily, and to me that personal touch point is super important. And that's also why that when you and I first started chatting, Adam, that I was so adamant about getting on a call and having that personal one-to-one FaceTime with the founder, because I think that's how relationships are made and developed, and that's how things last, for an extended period is with that personal connection. And so my manufacturers gave that to me, and I make sure that we pay that forward to our customers and clients as well.
Dude, I love it. I mean, I think it's just exciting. That's one of the things that I didn't realize when I started this podcast now, I don't know, 7 years ago, was just all the cool people that I would eventually meet. And you're definitely up there as one of them. I think that I'm off to a trade show next week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of really terrible things that people are going to try to pawn off on me because they just don't want to pack it and take it back with them. But I can tell you, if somebody gave me a pair of Hippy Feet socks, like I'm wearing some right now that are from Heritage West, which is like they were just part of the sample pack you sent me. I literally just wear. That's the thing. Like my buddy texted me the other day. He had the Label King socks on. He was like, "Hey, wearing these lucky socks to my son's football game." Like it is a memorable thing that I cannot stress. Like corporations, sports team, whatever it is, businesses like big and small. I strongly recommend just checking out what these guys are doing. You also have, it looks like you got a monthly sock club. You got
Oh
some
yeah.
limited edition things. You got stuff for just like regular consumers to go buy as well also. So all of that's at hippyfeet.com. And what's maybe the one thing about the website that you're like, man, I wish more people knew that we did this or that they could sign up for this? Is there anything that you're just like, if I could blast this out to a packaging podcast community, I wish I wish that everybody knew that this was available on the website.
I want to highlight our sweaters specifically. I live in Minnesota. It is cold 7 months of the year here. So I wear a lot of sweaters, and I also wear a lot of wool. I'm biased about our wool socks, particularly. So if you are looking for like, if you want my opinion on the best product that we make, it is our merino wool hiking socks, specifically the ones with fish on them. Every purchase of that pair, particularly, makes a donation to the Friends of the Boundary Waters, which is an organization working to protect the Boundary Waters canoe and wildlife area up here in Minnesota. Our current administration is trying to mine and frack the boundary waters, which will take away from clean water initiatives in Minnesota and to the surrounding states here. It will also take away access to some of the most pristine wilderness in the entire country. So we are very passionate and adamant about preserving the boundary waters, and happy to support those that organization with these sock sales. But on the sweater side of things, we were talking about quality and the time and energy and effort we put into producing high quality items. Our sweaters are some of the best products that we make. And the ones that are coming out this fall in particular will be the best sweater that I've ever made. What we have on the website currently is mostly a cotton sweater. We do have some wool left over. But again, I love wool. I'm partial to wool. So all of our sweaters, or most of our sweaters this year, are going to be 100% ultra fine merino wool that we source from Italy. The Italians are very good at producing some super soft and thin, high quality wool yarns. So we're going to be producing a collection of sweaters this year that is using Italian sourced wool. It'll be 100% merino wool. And this is the kind of wool that's so thin and so soft that it will not feel scratchy unless you unfortunately have a wool allergy. So this will be the best sweater we've ever produced, and I'm particularly excited about those because I'm a sweater guy, and like I buy a lot of Pendleton sweaters for myself, and I like this is nothing against Pendleton. I will still buy their products, but I think our sweaters can stand up next to Pendleton and actually feel superior as a product. So I am gung ho about our sweaters this year. They'll be available sometime early November. So that's the thing I want to shout from the rooftops to all the Label King podcast listeners.
Dude, I love it. And you know, to that end, it's funny because I have a Pendleton jacket that was my dad's jacket
Oh
in
yeah.
like the 1970s. That's still in great shape, you know. So it's like making. I mean, like going and buying stuff that's better than Pendleton is it's a bold claim. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. But I'm excited.
Well,
I suspect you're going to do it, right? And to be able to have something you can even just like pass down to your kids, because as we know, fashion is very cyclical. And so now
yes.
my dad's Pendleton jacket is cool. And it was when I was in high school, and that was in the 90s. And now it's the whatever, the the 20s. I don't know. What do we, I don't know what this is. The
Roaring
20,
twenties back again.
roaring 20s. Yeah. Uh, but anyway, yeah. So that's I. Shame on me. I didn't even look at your sweaters, and there's one on here that's a cardigan with the chevron. That's like exactly what I made the Label King socks. I'm like, oh my
Oh
gosh,
yeah.
I got to pick up a cardigan, and then quote Dumb and Dumber every time I'm driving. If you're familiar with this classic movie, pull over. No thanks, it's a cardigan. Um,
Yeah.
well, Michael, I really appreciate you coming on, man. I knew we would have a fantastic conversation. I still feel like there's more to talk about. But everyone go check out Hippy Feet. You can get some great high quality products there. Support American businesses. Support the restoration and the saving of the boundary waters with some merino sock purchases. You can help support homelessness through various ways. Just go support really cool companies, really cool people like Michael. If you want to get in touch with them, you can do that. Legitimately, go to their website, submit. That's what I did. I submitted something, got on a call. I was like, this is the guy, these are the people. We got to get these things ordered. And I hope to be able to order hundreds, if not thousands of more pairs of socks from you to support our growth as well. So thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having us, Adam. And one more thing that I'll leave you with here. If anybody listening to this podcast today is so excited about getting their own branded socks, if you go to our website, hippyfeet.com, custom socks and knitwear page, you fill out that form. If you mention the Label King is how you heard of us, we will give you a 15% discount off your first purchase of custom socks with us.
Oh, snap. 15% off. I'm gonna clip that because it's at the end. That sucker's going all the way at the beginning.
All right. All right. Heck yeah.
That's amazing, man. I appreciate it. Everyone go check out hippyfeet.com, mention Label King, get 15% off. That's totally organic. That just that just
There
happened.
you
We didn't even
go.
talk about it. So I love it, man. Appreciate you, Michael.
Thanks, Adam.